Most people think confidence is about being loud, flashy, or impressive, the kind of energy that fills a room and forces everyone to look. But if you've been part of this BookFuel English community for a while, you already know something deeper. Real confidence doesn't need to perform. It doesn't chase attention. It doesn't shout for approval. Real confidence is quiet, steady, and unmistakably powerful. It's the kind of energy that makes people pause, not because you demanded their attention, but because your presence naturally holds it. Maybe you've seen someone like that before. The one who walks into a room calmly, speaks only when needed, and yet every word lands with weight. Not because they tried to stand out, but because they didn't need to try. That is what I call dangerous confidence, and it's the kind of confidence we're going to build together in this program. Dangerous confidence isn't about being arrogant or acting superior. It's not about pretending you don't care or hiding your real emotions. It's about reaching a state where nothing outside of you can pull you off your center, nothing controls you, nothing provokes you, nothing owns your emotions. You don't react out of insecurity. You don't shrink because of judgment. You don't over-explain your choices just to feel accepted. Instead, you operate from a grounded sense of self, where your worth comes from within, not from what others give or take away. And let's be honest for a moment. Most people walk through life feeling insecure, not because they're weak, but because the world has trained them to hand their power away. They over-explain everything they do, as if every decision needs a permission slip. They chase approval like oxygen, hoping that being liked will finally make them feel whole. They take rejection so personally that one no can ruin their confidence for weeks. They let other people's opinions decide whether they feel good, valuable, or enough. And the more they react to everything around them, the more drained and unsure they become. Insecurity isn't a flaw. It's a habit, one that can be unlearned. And that is exactly why I created this series for you here on BookFuel English. Not just to motivate you, not just to inspire you for a few minutes, but to train you, to give you the mindset, the tools, and the daily habits that build dangerous confidence from the inside out. Throughout this program, you'll learn how to master your inner voice so it strengthens you instead of tearing you down. You'll learn how to set boundaries without guilt, speak with clarity instead of long explanations, and use silence as a powerful tool instead of reacting impulsively. You'll learn how to handle chaos calmly, how to treat rejection as fuel, how to detach from outcomes, and how to train your skills until your confidence comes from competence, not hope. Everything you're about to hear is designed to help you build a version of yourself that is steady, grounded, and self-respecting. But I want you to remember something important. This is not passive listening. Think of this as a training program, not a motivational video. Confidence isn't built by hearing new ideas. It's built by applying them. So as you move through these chapters, take one principle at a time and practice it. Not next week, not someday, today. When you feel the urge to over-explain, choose a short answer instead. When your inner voice turns harsh, redirect it. When discomfort shows up, step toward it instead of shrinking back. Every day, just one small shift. This book, this video, this series, whatever you want to call it, is a partnership between you and me. I'll bring the clarity, insight, and guidance. You bring the willingness to practice. And together we'll build a level of confidence that doesn't crumble, doesn't chase, and doesn't depend on anyone else's approval. Welcome to BookFuel English. Welcome to a stronger you. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Stop explaining yourself. Most people don't realize how much confidence they lose through one simple habit, explaining themselves far more than necessary. They defend every decision, justify every choice, and apologize for things that don't require an apology at all. They live in what can only be called apology mode, constantly trying to make sure no one misunderstands them, judges them, or feels disappointed. It sounds harmless, almost polite, but the truth is that over-explaining quietly destroys your sense of power. Every long, unnecessary explanation sends a subtle message to your own mind. My choice isn't enough on its own. I need other people to approve it before I can feel okay. Over time, that message becomes internalized. You start to believe you must earn permission for everything you do. And once you believe that, your confidence begins to collapse from the inside. Over-explaining looks innocent because most people do it without thinking. You're late to a meeting and suddenly you're reciting a full story about traffic, alarms, sleepless nights, broken phones, and every possible detail to prove you're not careless. Someone invites you somewhere and you don't want to go, but instead of saying, "Thank you, but I won't make it," you build an entire movie script of excuses, hoping they won't be offended. Or maybe someone questions one of your decisions, and instead of standing by your choice, you start over-justifying step by step as if you're on trial. None of this looks dramatic on the outside, but inside it reinforces insecurity. Because every time you over-explain, you're telling yourself what your decision alone is not enough. You're implying that you need others to validate your reasons before you're allowed to stand by them. What most people never realize is that over-explaining doesn't make others respect you more. It does the opposite. When you give long explanations for simple decisions, you send a hidden message. I need your approval to feel comfortable. People may not consciously notice it, but they feel it. Over-explaining creates an energetic imbalance. It places you in the position of someone seeking permission instead of someone acting with certainty. And here's the uncomfortable truth. People respect certainty, not justification. They respond to clarity, not to excuses. When you give explanations no one asked for, you shrink your own presence. When you justify a small decision with a long story, you silently tell the world that your choices need to be defended instead of simply stated. Confidence begins with minimal, concise language. The less you justify your decisions, the stronger they sound. Short, clear statements communicate authority. Phrases like, "That doesn't work for me," "I won't be available," "I've decided to go a different direction," or "I'm not doing that," carry weight because they lack desperation. They aren't rude or aggressive. They're simple, and simplicity signals certainty. Notice the difference between, "I'm so sorry I can't come tonight. It's just that I've been really tired, and my schedule has been crazy, and I'm trying to reset my sleep cycle," versus, "Thank you for inviting me. I won't make it." The first one feels anxious. The second feels solid. You feel the confidence in the shorter response because it reflects someone who respects their own boundaries without seeking approval for them. Practical examples make this shift easy to understand. If you're late, you don't need a monologue. Just say, "Thank you for waiting," and enter the moment with composure. If someone asks why you declined an event, you don't need a list of excuses. You can simply say, "I'm not available." If someone questions your decision, you don't need to justify every detail. You can say, "This is the choice that works for me." When coworkers try to push extra tasks onto you, you don't need to apologize or plead. You can calmly say, "I won't be able to take this on." When friends pressure you into things you don't want, you don't need to defend yourself. You can say, "No, that's not something I'm doing right now." These short responses don't show rudeness. They show clarity. And clarity is one of the strongest signals of self-respect. What makes this skill so powerful is the shift it creates in your internal identity. When you stop explaining yourself, you stop performing for acceptance. You stop seeking permission. You stop shaping your behavior around what others might think. Instead, you start shaping your behavior around your own values, preferences, and decisions. That is the root of confidence, not bravado, not ego, but the quiet conviction that your choices are enough because they come from you. The moment you no longer feel obligated to prove yourself, you step into a new level of personal authority. To make this real, try a simple experiment for the next 7 days. For 1 week, challenge yourself to answer everything with short, clear statements. No long speeches, no excuse stacking, no apologizing unless you truly made a mistake. When someone asks a question, give the shortest, most honest answer you can. When someone pressures you, stand firm with a calm, simple no. When you decline something, say it directly without dressing it up. You will feel discomfort at first because your mind is used to seeking approval, but stay with it. What you will discover is that every short answer reinforces your confidence. Every firm statement strengthens your identity. Every boundary you hold without explaining becomes a message to your mind. I trust myself. My choices are valid. I don't need permission to stand by them. And once you internalize that, you will walk through the world differently, calmer, clearer, and far more powerful than before. Chapter 2. Master your inner voice. If there is one factor that determines your confidence more than anything else, it is not the opinions of other people. It is the voice inside your own mind. Most people think their confidence rises and falls based on how others treat them, what others say to them, or how others react to them. But the truth is the opposite. The real source of confidence is not external approval, it is internal narration, your inner voice, the one that speaks to you every day, every hour, every minute, is the quiet architect of your self-esteem. Other people may influence you occasionally, but your inner voice influences you constantly. It is there when you wake up, when you make decisions, when you fail, when you succeed, when you doubt yourself, when you push forward. And because it speaks to you more than anyone else does, it has the most power over how you feel about yourself. That is why mastering it is non-negotiable if you want to build dangerous confidence. The problem is that most people have an inner voice that sabotages rather than supports. Their internal script sounds like, "I always mess things up. I'm not good enough. People are probably judging me," or "Why did I even try?" These phrases may seem small, But repeated over weeks, months, and years, they slowly carve insecurity into your identity. When your inner voice attacks you, you walk into every situation already shrinking. You enter the room nervous. You speak with hesitation. You hold back your ideas. You assume failure before you try. And you respond to challenges as if you're fragile instead of capable. A negative inner voice is like an invisible weight pulling down your posture, your expression, your energy, and your confidence. But everything changes when you shift that script. A confident inner voice does not pretend everything is perfect. It does not lie to you or inflate your ego. It simply speaks to you the way a strong mentor would. When something goes wrong, it doesn't say, "I'm a failure." It says, "This is hard, but I'll figure it out." When you walk into something new, it doesn't say, "I'm not ready." It says, "I've done difficult things before. I can handle this." When you face uncertainty, it doesn't say, "People will judge me." It says, "I belong in this room as much as anyone else." The difference between "I always mess up" and "I'll figure it out" seems small, but that shift can completely rewrite how you move through the world. Your brain believes repetition, not logic. It does not care whether a statement is uplifting or destructive. It simply adopts whatever it hears often. That's how identity forms. That's how insecurity forms. And fortunately, that's how confidence forms too. If you tell yourself you're weak, you will begin to act weaker. If you tell yourself you're capable, you will start acting more capable. Most people never train their inner voice, so it becomes a random mix of old fears, past criticism, childhood conditioning, and emotional memory. But when you deliberately direct it, you change the foundation of your mindset. You shift from being controlled by your thoughts to choosing them. And that is one of the most powerful psychological transformations a person can experience. To build this transformation, you need a daily practice, something simple, consistent, and repeatable. A ritual that trains your inner voice each morning before the world has a chance to shape it for you. Start with 3 statements you say out loud every morning. You can choose your own, but here is a powerful default set. I respect myself. I can handle anything that comes today. I don't need anyone's approval to move forward. These sentences are not magic. They are training. They remind your mind of the truth. They anchor your identity before the challenges of the day begin. Over time, as you repeat them, they stop sounding like affirmations and start sounding like descriptions of who you are. That's when you know they're working. A major part of mastering your inner voice is learning how to reframe setbacks. Most people interpret failure as evidence that they're not good enough. They tell themselves, "I failed, so I shouldn't try again." But failure is not identity. It's information, it's feedback, it's training. When something goes wrong, your inner voice should not attack you. It should guide you. Instead of saying, "I ruined everything," it should say, "This didn't work. What do I need to adjust?" Instead of saying, "I embarrassed myself," it should say, "Now I know what to improve next time." This shift turns every setback into skill development instead of self-destruction. It allows you to stay confident even when things aren't going your way. The goal of mastering your inner voice is not to become blindly positive or to deny reality. The goal is to create an internal environment where confidence can grow instead of constantly being crushed. A strong inner voice doesn't ignore difficulties. It acknowledges them while reminding you that you are capable. It doesn't pretend you'll never fail. It teaches you that you can learn from failure. It doesn't promise that everything will be easy. It promises that you're strong enough to face what isn't easy. When your inner voice operates from strength instead of fear, you stop walking into situations with self-doubt and start walking in with quiet assurance. If you take one lesson from this chapter, let it be this: the world does not shape your confidence. Your inner voice does. And the moment you take control of that voice, you take control of your entire identity. Build it, train it, direct it, because the person who commands their inner voice becomes the person who commands their life. Chapter 3. Build respect before confidence. Most people try to build confidence the wrong way. They think confidence comes after success, after praise, after achievements, after becoming someone impressive. They wait for external proof before allowing themselves to feel worthy. They say, "I'll respect myself when I accomplish more," as if self-respect is a reward instead of a requirement. But the truth is the exact opposite. You don't gain respect for yourself after you succeed. You succeed because you respect yourself first. Confidence is not the foundation of respect. Respect is the foundation of confidence. When you treat yourself like someone who matters, someone whose time and energy and boundaries are valuable, your actions naturally rise to match that identity. But when you treat yourself casually, disrespectfully, or carelessly, your confidence weakens long before the world ever gets a chance to judge you. This is why two people with the same skill set can show up completely differently. One walks in with authority, grounded and steady, while the other shrinks, hesitates, and doubts every move. The difference isn't talent, it's self-respect. The confident person isn't necessarily better. They just believe they deserve to stand where they are. They carry themselves differently because they hold themselves to a different internal standard. And that internal standard becomes a blueprint for how the world treats them. Most people think the world teaches them how to feel about themselves, but the opposite is far more true. How you treat yourself teaches the world how to treat you. If you talk to yourself disrespectfully, others will feel comfortable doing the same. If you disregard your own boundaries, others will ignore them too. If you tolerate disrespect, you silently announce that disrespect is acceptable. Your self-respect is not just an internal matter. It is a signal broadcast to everyone around you. Self-respect is built through small actions. It's not created through dramatic transformation or motivational speeches. It's built through micro-respects, the daily behaviors that reinforce your value to yourself. Keeping small promises to yourself, even tiny ones, is one of the most powerful forms of self-respect. If you say you'll drink water before checking your phone in the morning, and you do it, that's self-respect. If you say you'll take a 5-minute walk and you follow through, that's self-respect. If you commit to shutting down your screen at a certain time so you can protect your sleep, and you honor that commitment, that's self-respect. These actions may seem insignificant, but on a psychological level, they are monumental. Each kept promise tells your mind, "I can trust myself." And self-trust is the backbone of confidence. Another critical micro-respect is how you speak to yourself. If you constantly trash talk yourself, calling yourself stupid, useless, lazy, or unworthy, your mind absorbs those words as truth. Self-respect requires you to stop weaponizing your own voice against yourself. You would never speak to a close friend the way you sometimes speak to yourself. So why treat your own mind with less dignity than you give others? Self-respect doesn't mean pretending you're perfect. It means refusing to degrade yourself. It means saying, I made a mistake, but I'm learning, instead of, I ruin everything. It means focusing on improvement instead of shame. This shift might sound small, but it completely changes the emotional atmosphere you live in. Protecting your energy is another form of self-respect. When you sacrifice your rest, your time, or your peace for everyone else's comfort, you teach yourself that your needs don't matter. But when you create space for sleep, restoration, quiet, and boundaries, you remind yourself that your well-being is important. Self-respect is not selfish. It is necessary. You cannot operate with strength if your tank is always empty. The biggest leak in self-respect is tolerating disrespect from others. When you allow people to talk down to you, ignore your boundaries, cross your limits, or treat you as an afterthought, you teach your mind that this is acceptable behavior. You normalize it. And once it becomes normal, it becomes very difficult to feel confident because your confidence is competing against the internal message that says, I guess this is the treatment I deserve. Every time you tolerate disrespect, you chip away at your own foundation. But the moment you refuse it, calmly, clearly, without over-explaining, you reinforce your worth. You don't have to argue, fight, or create drama. You simply have to draw a line and stand by it. That act alone can rebuild more confidence than a year of positive thinking. To strengthen your self-respect, create a small daily contract with yourself. Choose 3 simple promises you will keep every single day, no matter what. These promises should be realistic, clear, and achievable. For example, I will make my bed when I wake up. I will speak one kind sentence to myself each morning. I will do 5 minutes of movement. Or, I will set one boundary today, even if it's small. The promises are not meant to impress anyone. They're meant to build trust with yourself. When you follow through on them day after day, your mind begins to see you as someone reliable, someone consistent, someone whose word actually means something. And when you respect your own word, confidence becomes the natural byproduct. Confidence isn't something you chase. It's something you earn by treating yourself with dignity. When you build respect before confidence, you create a foundation no one can touch. You start to walk differently, speak differently, and choose differently, not because you feel superior, but because you finally recognize your own worth. And once you see it, the world eventually has to see it too. Chapter 4. Kill the need for approval. One of the biggest obstacles to unshakable confidence is the constant need for approval. Most people don't realize how deeply this need controls their behavior. They dress in ways they hope others will approve of, not in ways that express who they truly are. They post online not because they want to share something meaningful, but because they want the dopamine hit of someone clicking like. They adjust their tone, their opinions, and even their personality based on what they think will make them more likable. Without noticing it, they become performers in their own lives, constantly shaping their identity around the reactions of other people. The problem is not that they want to be liked. Wanting connection is human. The problem is when being liked becomes a requirement for feeling okay. When approval becomes oxygen, you suffocate anytime it's not given. Approval-based confidence is fragile because it depends on variables you cannot control. The opinions of others shift constantly, based on their mood, their biases, their insecurities, their stress, their expectations, or their own unresolved issues. If your confidence rises when people praise you and collapses when people criticize you, then your confidence never truly belonged to you in the first place. It belonged to the people whose reactions you depended on. And the moment someone disapproves or misunderstands you or dislikes something you do, your whole identity feels threatened. That's not confidence. That's dependency dressed up in social compliance. True confidence requires you to flip the question you ask yourself. Most people walk into a room thinking, do they like me? Do they approve of what I'm doing? Do they think I'm good enough? These questions turn you into a mirror, constantly reflecting back what you think others want to see. But the real question, the one that sets you free, is this: do I respect how I'm showing up? When you shift from external judgment to internal integrity, everything changes. You stop trying to impress and start trying to align. You stop chasing applause and start chasing authenticity. You stop bending yourself into shapes that please others and start building yourself into someone you admire. Enjoying praise and needing praise may look similar on the surface, but they come from two completely different energies. Enjoying praise feels good. It's a bonus, a pleasant moment. It's someone noticing your effort or appreciating who you are. But needing praise is a trap. It means your value hinges on someone else validating it. It makes your sense of self conditional, and conditional confidence is always temporary. The moment someone withholds praise, disagrees with you, or doesn't respond the way you hoped, your internal foundation shakes. You start questioning your worth, not because you changed, but because approval wasn't delivered. The person who enjoys praise is free. The person who needs praise is controlled by it. Approval addiction shows up in subtle behaviors. You might overthink your messages before sending them. You might soften your voice or your behavior to avoid rejection. You might say yes to things you hate because you fear disappointing someone. You might hide your true opinions to avoid conflict. You might stay silent when something matters to you. None of these actions seem dramatic, but together they form a pattern that slowly erodes your self-respect. Because every time you betray yourself for approval, you teach your mind that other people's comfort is more important than your truth. Breaking the need for approval doesn't require you to become cold, detached, or indifferent. It simply requires you to value your integrity more than someone else's temporary reaction. You don't have to stop caring what anyone thinks. You simply have to care more about what you think. You have to prioritize self-respect over social comfort. And the moment you do, you will feel a shift. You become less anxious in conversations because you're no longer performing. You become more decisive because you're no longer waiting for permission. You become more grounded because your sense of self is no longer being negotiated in every interaction. To start breaking the approval habit, try two small exercises. First, say no to something without over-explaining or apologizing. Keep it simple. I'm not available. That doesn't work for me. Or, no, thank you. The simplicity of your answer is the strength of it. The moment you resist the urge to add excuses or soften your truth, you reclaim power from the approval reflex. It will feel uncomfortable at first, but that discomfort is the sign that you're breaking a habit. Second, do one thing this week simply because you believe in it. Even if no one claps, no one notices, and no one validates you. This could be reading a book you love, wearing something that expresses your style, taking a risk in your career, or sharing an opinion and that matters to you, even if it's not popular. When you act from inner alignment instead of outer approval, you teach your mind that your voice matters. You build internal evidence that you can stand alone when necessary. And every time you choose authenticity over acceptance, you strengthen the core of your identity. The goal is not to become someone who rejects connection or relationships. The goal is to become someone who does not depend on approval for emotional survival. Approval becomes a bonus, not a lifeline. Praise becomes appreciation, not validation. And when you reach that point, you walk through the world differently, lighter, freer, calmer, and infinitely more confident. Because approval can enhance you, but only self-respect can sustain you. Chapter 5. Respond with silence, not impulse. One of the strongest signs of confidence is not how quickly you speak, how sharply you argue, or how intensely you defend yourself. It is how well you can remain quiet when your emotions want to explode. Most people react without thinking. The moment they feel offended, they snap. The moment someone challenges them, they rush to defend themselves. The moment they feel insecure, they talk more, explain more, justify more. This reactive pattern feels natural, but it is one of the fastest ways to lose your power. Reaction is impulsive. Response is intentional. Reaction is driven by emotion. Response is driven by clarity. Reaction puts control in the hands of whoever triggered you. Response puts control back in your own hands. The gap between reaction and response is where confidence lives, and silence is the tool that creates that gap. Emotional outbursts always feel justified in the moment. You feel disrespected, so you fire back. You feel misunderstood, so you over-explain. You feel insulted, so you attack. But every outburst gives your power away because it proves that someone else can control your emotions. If another person can make you angry, insecure, defensive, or flustered with a few words, then they are in control of you, not the other way around. That is why staying calm is so powerful. When you refuse to react emotionally, you show that your internal state is not dictated by external behavior. You become someone who cannot be manipulated, provoked, or thrown off balance. People feel that steadiness instantly, even if you never say a word. Silence is not weakness. It is not avoidance. It is a tool, a deliberate choice to pause before you respond, to hold your ground instead of being pulled into someone else's emotional chaos. When you stay silent for a moment, you aren't surrendering. You are observing. You are giving yourself a chance to understand the situation instead of being consumed by it. You are letting the other person reveal their intentions, their temperament, their insecurities, or their strategy. Silence exposes people. When someone tries to provoke you and you do not react, their behavior begins to show more about them than about you. A person who is used to controlling others with pressure or emotion becomes uncomfortable when their tactics fail. They reveal things they never intended to reveal, and you learn more by listening than you ever would by shouting. Knowing when to stay silent and when to speak clearly is an art. Silence is powerful when someone is trying to get an emotional reaction out of you, or when a situation benefits from observation rather than instant action. For example, if someone insults you in a way designed to provoke, silence communicates that their words hold no weight. If someone is angry and yelling, silence shows that you will not mirror their chaos. If someone is pressuring you to respond quickly, silence shows that you will not let urgency manipulate your decisions. On the other hand, silence is not appropriate when a boundary needs to be set, when injustice needs to be addressed, or when clarity is necessary to prevent misunderstanding. In those moments, you speak not loudly, not emotionally, but clearly and firmly. The strongest voice is often the one that speaks last and speaks with intention. To build this skill, you must train yourself to pause before you respond. This is where the pause, breathe, decide method becomes essential. When something triggers you, the first instinct is to defend or attack. Instead, pause. Let the moment stretch. Give yourself a second to interrupt your emotional reflex. Then breathe, slowly and consciously. It signals your nervous system to calm down. It grounds you. And in that calm, you decide. You choose your response deliberately instead of firing back impulsively. You decide if the situation requires silence, clarity, or dismissal. You decide whether this moment deserves your energy or whether it is better to walk away. That small pause gives you control over yourself, which is the essence of confidence. This method works in every area of life. In arguments, the ability to pause prevents you from saying things you'll regret. In professional settings, silence makes you appear composed and thoughtful instead of rushed or reactive. In relationships, silence helps you listen, understand, and respond with maturity. In moments of criticism, silence protects you from emotional overcorrection. In moments of pressure, silence allows you to reflect instead of crumble. And in moments of confrontation, silence becomes a shield that keeps you in command of your emotions while others unravel. The truth is that people who react impulsively are predictable and easy to control. People who respond with silence are unpredictable and difficult to influence. They cannot be pushed, pressured, or manipulated because their emotions belong to them, not to the situation. That is why silence, when used with intention, is dangerous confidence. It is the moment where you show the world that you are not here to react. You are here to choose. You decide how you show up. You decide how you speak. You decide when to engage and when to let your presence speak louder than your words. When you master the ability to respond with silence instead of impulse, you transform the way people see you and the way you see yourself. You no longer feel the need to justify, defend, or explain every emotion. You stop letting others dictate your emotional state. You gain clarity, power, and control. And most importantly, you develop a deeper trust in your ability to stay grounded, no matter what happens around you. That is the hallmark of dangerous confidence. Not noise, but control. Not reaction, but intention. Not chaos, but quiet power. Chapter 6. Let your body speak first. Before you ever say a word, your body has already introduced you. People form opinions within seconds, long before you open your mouth, explain who you are, or display your intelligence. They read your posture, your movement, your expression, your energy. They decide whether you seem confident, anxious, trustworthy, competent, or insecure before they even hear your voice. That is why body language is one of the most powerful foundations of confidence. You can speak your way into being respected if your body communicates uncertainty. The truth is simple. People believe your body before they believe your words. There is often a mismatch between what people say and what their body reveals. Someone might say, "I'm confident," but their shoulders are slouched, their gaze is downward, their movements are fidgety, and their energy is scattered. Their body screams, "I'm scared," even while their words try to assert the opposite. Confidence is not something you can announce. It is something you express without speaking. When your words and body don't match, people will always trust the body. And even more importantly, you will trust the body. Your body doesn't just communicate confidence, it creates it. Your body sends signals to your mind about how you should feel. When you sit small, you feel small. When you clench your shoulders or avoid eye contact, your brain interprets that posture as uncertainty. When you move frantically, speak too fast, or fidget constantly, your system interprets your behavior as stress. But when you straighten your posture, open your chest, breathe deeply, slow your pace, and maintain steady eye contact, your body signals your mind that you are safe, capable, and in control. The mind and body exist in a loop. Each influences the other. That means you can use your body to shift your emotional state instead of waiting for confidence to magically appear. Some people misunderstand this and think acting confident means pretending to be someone you're not. But aligning your body with confidence is not pretending. It's removing the physical habits that sabotage you. You are not faking a new personality. You are clearing the physical signals that send the wrong message about who you truly are. You are revealing confidence, not creating it from nothing. And when your body reflects strength, your mind begins to follow. 4 key body signals have an immediate impact: posture, pace, eye contact, and stillness. Posture is your foundation. When your spine lengthens, your shoulders roll back, and your chest opens slightly, you project presence. You take up space in a natural, grounded way. You don't shrink yourself. You don't fold inward. Your posture tells the world and your mind that you belong wherever you are. Pace is the next signal. Confident people do not rush. They walk at a steady, controlled speed. They speak with intention, not urgency. Slowing your pace automatically calms your nervous system and conveys certainty. Eye contact is one of the clearest signals of confidence. You don't need to stare intensely or try to dominate. You simply need to be unafraid of being seen. Brief, calm eye contact communicates comfort with yourself. Looking away constantly communicates fear. Eye contact done correctly says, "I am present, I am listening, I'm not hiding." And finally, stillness. Confident people are not restless. They don't fidget, tap, shake, or constantly adjust themselves. They allow silence. They allow pauses. They allow their body to be settled. Stillness is powerful because it shows self-control. Because the mind and body are connected, changing these physical behaviors will change how you feel internally. If you walk into a room with a slow, steady pace, your brain shifts into a calmer state. If you maintain open posture, your internal voice becomes stronger. If you speak with deliberate pauses, your thoughts become clearer. These aren't tricks. They are methods of aligning your inner and outer worlds. They allow your natural confidence to surface by preventing fear-driven habits from hijacking your presence. To make this practical, you need a simple body reset ritual, something you can do before any meeting, interaction, or social setting. It takes less than 30 seconds, yet it transforms how you enter a room. First, breathe. One slow, deep breath in through the nose, expanding your chest, and a long exhale through the mouth. This resets your nervous system and reduces tension. Next, posture. Roll your shoulders back once, align your spine, lift your head slightly, and allow your chest to open. Not exaggerated, just free of collapse. Then pace. Remind yourself to move slowly as you walk into the space. Slow movements communicate certainty. And finally, presence. Before you speak, look at the room or at the person for 1 second longer than you normally would. That pause communicates that you are anchored, not reactive. These small adjustments compound. They make you appear more confident, but more importantly, they make you feel more confident. You start interacting from a grounded place. You stop shrinking. You stop rushing. You stop hiding. You begin to occupy your space fully, not with aggression, but with presence. The world responds to your body before it responds to your voice. People can sense whether you respect yourself, whether you trust yourself, and whether you feel secure long before you explain anything. When your body speaks confidence, your words become more believable, your boundaries become stronger, your interactions become smoother, and your presence becomes magnetic. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to force anything. You simply need to let your body reflect the calm power that already exists within you. When you let your body speak first, you discover that confidence is not always something you say. Often, it is something you stand in. Chapter 7. Stop reacting, start leading. Most people move through life in reaction mode. Something happens and they instantly respond. Someone criticizes them, and they defend themselves without thinking. Someone gets angry, and they mirror that anger. Someone disrespects them, and they snap. Their emotional state is constantly shaped by whatever enters their environment. They are followers, not because they are weak, but because they allow every external stimulus to dictate how they feel, act, and think. The truth is simple. You cannot be a leader, not in your career, not in relationships, not in your own life, if you are always reacting. Reactivity makes you predictable, controllable, and easily manipulated. Leadership begins the moment you stop letting everything around you determine your behavior and start choosing your behavior based on who you want to be. Reaction mode is fast, impulsive, and emotional. It feels natural because the brain is wired to respond instantly to discomfort, fear, or pressure. Someone pushes your buttons, and before you have even taken a breath, you are in the middle of a reaction you didn't consciously choose. But the painful truth is this: if people know how to get a reaction out of you, then they can control you. They learn your triggers. They learn what words make you defensive, what tone makes you insecure, and what behavior makes you crumble. And once they know that, they can pull those emotional strings whenever it benefits them. Some do it intentionally, some do it unconsciously, but the result's the same. You lose control over yourself. Leadership mode works differently. Leaders decide the emotional tone before they enter a situation. They don't wait to see what the room feels like. They bring the energy they want the room to follow. They don't mirror anger with anger or insecurity with insecurity. They ground themselves first, then influence the environment. Leading yourself first is the foundation of leading anything else. It means setting your internal state before the world has a chance to set it for you. Before a meeting, a conversation, or a difficult moment, a leader takes a breath and decides, I will stay calm, I will stay clear, I will not let this situation dictate my identity. That internal decision creates a kind of emotional armor. It doesn't make you cold, it makes you stable. This shift becomes obvious in real-life scenarios. Imagine you're in a meeting and someone challenges your idea in a blunt or dismissive tone. The reactive person panics inwardly and either attacks, withdraws, or scrambles to justify themselves. The leader pauses. They let the moment breathe. They separate the challenge from their identity. Then they respond with clarity, calm explanation, direct questions, or a redirection to the bigger goal. That calmness often shifts the entire room. People who were ready for conflict soften. People who expected defensiveness are caught off guard. The leader's energy becomes the anchor everyone else settles around. Or consider an argument. Someone gets emotional, raises their voice, accuses you unfairly, or throws past issues at you. The reactive person matches the intensity and the argument turns into a storm. The leader stays centered. They listen without absorbing the chaos. They speak slowly instead of speeding up. They maintain composure not to appear superior, but to preserve clarity. That emotional steadiness often de-escalates the other person because it removes the fuel. Conflict dies when one person stops feeding it. That is leadership. Relationships reveal this difference even more clearly. When your partner is stressed, upset, or overwhelmed, the reactive person absorbs that energy and immediately reacts to it, either by shutting down, arguing, or escalating the tension. The leader holds space. They don't ignore their own emotions, but they choose not to let the moment pull them out of alignment. They ask questions, offer calmness, or simply stay steady. That steadiness becomes contagious. In relationships, the person who can lead emotionally, not dominate, but stabilize, creates safety, and safety builds connection. To move from reacting to leading, you need a mental shift. Instead of asking, what do I say back? How do I defend myself? How should I react to what they just said? Ask a different question. What do I want to create here? This question instantly lifts you out of the emotional whirlwind and puts you back in control. Do you want to create clarity? Then respond calmly. Do you want to create boundaries? Then speak firmly. Do you want to create peace? Then stay grounded. Do you want to create progress? Then redirect the conversation towards solutions. When you ask, what do I want to create? Instead of what do I say back? You transform from a follower of circumstance into the leader of the moment. This question works because it shifts your focus from reaction to intention. Reaction is about them. Intention is about you. Reaction is shaped by external behavior. Intention is shaped by internal choice. With this shift, you stop giving your power to the situation and start claiming it. You stop letting emotions decide for you and start choosing your emotions consciously. Confidence grows from this discipline. It grows from knowing that no matter what chaos happens around you, you can stay steady inside yourself. Every moment of your life gives you these two choices: react or lead. React, and you become a mirror. You take on the shape of whatever happens around you. Lead, and you become the mold. You shape the situation instead of letting it shape you. Leadership is not about being in charge of others. It is about being in charge of yourself. It is about setting the emotional tone rather than being swept into someone else's. When you master this, you become someone people naturally trust, follow, and respect, not because you demanded it, but because your steadiness inspires it. Stop reacting. Start leading, not for applause, not for dominance, but for control over your own inner world. When you choose intention over impulse, you step into a level of confidence that few people ever reach. You become the calm force in every storm, the person who cannot be moved. Chapter 8. Embrace discomfort until it's normal. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid discomfort. They choose the safe conversations, the familiar routines, the predictable environments, and the situations where they know exactly what will happen. At first glance, this looks like self-protection, but in reality, it becomes self-imprisonment. When you always choose what feels comfortable, you never create new proof of your own strength. You never collect evidence that you can handle more than you think. And without that evidence, your confidence cannot grow. Comfort convinces you that you are fragile, that your limits are fixed, that risk is unsafe. It whispers, stay here where it's familiar. But comfort's real goal is to keep you small. Confidence requires confronting discomfort. You cannot build mental strength while avoiding the environments that create it. If you think about the moments in your life that actually changed you, none of them were comfortable. Growth came from the uncertain job interview, the difficult conversation, the first step into something new, the times when you felt unprepared but acted anyway. That is because discomfort is the gym for confidence. Just like your muscles only grow under resistance, your courage only grows under challenge. Every uncomfortable moment you face becomes a training session. Every time you push through discomfort, you send a message to your mind. I can handle this. And that message becomes the foundation of dangerous confidence. The key is to approach discomfort the way an athlete approaches training, with structure, intention, and progression. Not all discomfort is the same. There are levels of stretch, and you don't need to start with the biggest challenges to build confidence. Mild discomfort is the small stretch. The moment you speak once in a meeting, even though you usually stay silent, the moment you introduce yourself to someone new instead of waiting for them to come to you, the moment you choose to hold eye contact slightly longer instead of looking away. These small moments might feel insignificant, but they begin the rewiring process. They teach your nervous system that you won't collapse in discomfort. Medium discomfort pushes you further. It might be leading something small when you normally stay in the background, running a short presentation, volunteering for a task, or initiating a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. These moments create real internal shifts because they give you new evidence of what you're capable of. You prove to yourself that you can be seen, you can lead, and you can operate outside the edges of your comfort zone. Then there is big discomfort, the kind that feels like stepping into a new identity, starting a new project, taking a public risk, committing to a goal that scares you, launching an idea that others might judge. These big leaps are not required every day, but they are necessary throughout your life. They stretch you into a new level of capability. They force you to grow in ways that quiet, safe living never could. And the more big challenges you take on, the less intimidating they become. What once terrified you becomes normal. That is the power of progressive discomfort. The mindset that makes this possible is simple but transformational. Most people encounter fear and think, this is too much. Their body tenses, their mind panics, and they retreat. But the confident person has trained a different response. When discomfort hits, they say, this is where I get stronger. That reframe changes everything. Discomfort stops being a threat and becomes a signal for growth. Instead of seeing fear as a warning, you begin to see it as an invitation. Something inside you shifts from avoidance to curiosity. You stop asking, how do I escape this? And start asking, what will this build in me? This reframe does not eliminate fear. It transforms it. You still feel the nerves, the uncertainty, the racing thoughts, but instead of retreating, you stay. You move forward with the fear, and each time you do, you increase your capacity. What used to overwhelm you becomes manageable. What used to scare you becomes routine. What used to hold you back becomes the very thing that propels you forward. Discomfort becomes normal, not because it becomes easier, but because you become stronger. To make discomfort a consistent part of your growth, you need a weekly discomfort challenge system. Once a week, choose one specific action that stretches you slightly beyond what feels easy. It doesn't need to be dramatic. It just needs to be uncomfortable enough to trigger the internal voice that says, I'd rather not. That voice is your target. If speaking up is uncomfortable, make that your weekly challenge. If reaching out to someone intimidates you, do that. If starting a project you've been procrastinating feels daunting, begin it. If taking the lead in a small moment scares you, step up anyway. The goal is not to overwhelm yourself. The goal is to build consistency in facing discomfort. Over time, these small weekly challenges accumulate into something powerful. You begin to trust your ability to handle new and uncomfortable situations. You stop fearing uncertainty because you've trained yourself to step into it. You replace the identity of I avoid discomfort with I grow through discomfort. And that identity becomes one of the strongest forms of confidence a person can have. Discomfort is not your enemy. It is the doorway to the strongest version of you. When you stop running from it and start walking toward it, you break the illusion that fear is dangerous. You discover that fear is simply the edge of your current capabilities, and on the other side of that edge is your next level. Embrace discomfort until it becomes normal, because when discomfort becomes normal, confidence becomes inevitable. Chapter 9, Speak Less, Command More. There is a reason the most powerful people in any room are rarely the ones talking the most. In fact, it's almost always the opposite. The people who speak non-stop, who rush to fill silence, who explain every detail, who talk as if every moment of quiet is a threat, these are the people others tune out quickly. Talking too much drains your authority. It signals insecurity, anxiety, or the need to be validated. The more you speak without intention, the less impact your words carry. True confidence is not measured by the volume of your voice or the number of your words, but by the weight those words hold. And the weight comes from restraint. Silence is a power move, not the kind rooted in manipulation, but the kind rooted in self-control. When you are comfortable with silence, you show that you do not fear being unseen or unheard. You show that you don't need to rush, convince, or entertain. You show that you are grounded enough to let the moment breathe. Silence unsettles people who expect immediate reactions. It shifts the dynamic. It makes others lean in. And when you finally decide to speak, your words land with more force because they are not drowned in noise. Most people underestimate the power of pauses. A pause before you speak signals that you think before you respond. A pause during your speech adds gravity. A pause after your words allows them to sink in. Pauses are confidence expressed through timing. When you talk quickly and continuously, you sound like someone trying to chase their own thoughts. But when you slow down and allow space between your sentences, you sound like someone in control of themselves and the situation. The goal is not to become silent all the time. The goal is to make your speech sharp and intentional. Short, direct sentences carry far more authority than long, winding explanations. Yes, no, that works for me. I disagree. Here's why. These sentences are clean. They don't wobble. They don't soften your truth for the sake of approval. They don't over-explain or apologize or seek permission. They are firm without being aggressive. Confident people don't hide behind complicated language or endless justification. They say what they mean clearly, calmly, and concisely. When you speak less, you create a stronger presence. People pay attention to those who choose their words carefully because those words tend to matter. The person who talks endlessly reveals everything: their emotions, their insecurities, their weaknesses, their intentions. The person who speaks less reveals only what they want, and that control creates respect. It shows discipline, it shows maturity, and it shows that you understand the value of your own voice. But speaking less is only half of the equation. The other half is listening, real, intentional listening. Most people listen only so they can respond. They listen to find openings to talk again. They listen from ego, not understanding. But confident people listen deeply. They observe the details most others miss. They hear what is said and what is avoided. They pick up tone, emotion, insecurity, contradiction, desire, and motive. Listening is a form of dominance, not because it controls others, but because it gives you more information than they have. It puts you in a position of awareness, and awareness gives you the power to respond intelligently instead of impulsively. When you truly listen, you no longer need to talk as much. You wait, you observe, you understand. And then, when you finally speak, your words are sharper because they are rooted in clarity, not assumption. People feel the difference instantly. Your presence shifts from reactive to authoritative. You no longer communicate to be heard, you communicate to be effective. Speaking less also gives others space to reveal themselves. People often expose their own intentions, insecurities, or weaknesses simply because you allow them to talk. While they fill the silence, they reveal far more than they realize. Meanwhile, you maintain your center, your control, and your clarity. This is one of the subtle advantages of quiet confidence. It allows you to understand people far better than they understand you. To practice this skill, challenge yourself to cut your words in half in one or two key conversations this week. Don't rush to answer a question immediately. Don't fill silence with chatter. Don't add unnecessary details. When someone asks you something, answer with clarity instead of explanation. When someone speaks, listen without interrupting. When you feel the urge to fill the space, take a slow breath instead. You will notice two things almost immediately. First, you will feel more composed. The pressure to say the perfect thing disappears when you give yourself permission to say less. Second, other people will treat you differently. They will lean in more. They will wait for your words. They will respect your presence. They will sense the authority of someone who does not spill their energy everywhere. Speaking less is not about withholding your personality or becoming distant. It is about elevating your communication to a level where every word matters. It is about removing nervous chatter, anxious explanations, and unnecessary noise. It is about using silence as a tool for presence rather than a space you fear. And it is about understanding that your voice carries more weight when you don't give it away freely. Confident communication is simple. It is calm. It is deliberate. It is selective. And it commands attention not by demanding it, but by earning it. When you learn to speak less and command more, you discover that authority does not come from volume. It comes from intention. It comes from restraint. It comes from knowing that your words matter and treating them as such. Chapter 10. Turn rejection into power. Rejection is one of the deepest emotional pains a person can feel. It hits the ego, the identity, and the sense of belonging all at once. That's why it feels personal even when it isn't. When someone says no, turns you down, overlooks you, or chooses something or someone else, your mind instantly interprets it as a verdict on your worth. You don't just think they rejected the idea. You think they rejected me. You don't think this opportunity wasn't the right fit. You think there must be something wrong with me. Rejection stings because it threatens the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. But the truth is far different. Rejection is rarely about your worth. It is almost always about timing, fit, preferences, perspective, or circumstance. The real problem is not rejection itself, it's the meaning you attach to it. The people who rise in life are not the ones who avoid rejection. They are the ones who learn how to use it. They interpret rejection as feedback, not as a wound. They see it as redirection, not humiliation. They understand that rejection is part of the process of growth, not proof that they are unworthy. If you look at anyone who has accomplished anything meaningful, whether in creativity, business, athletics, or leadership, you will notice that the path to their success is paved with rejections. Doors slammed shut. People doubted them. Opportunities passed them by. yet they kept going. Not because they were immune to the sting, but because they learned to transform the sting into fuel. Rejection becomes destructive only when you tie it to your identity. When you mistake "this was rejected" for "I am a failure," you collapse your sense of self into a single moment. But rejection is an event, not a definition. It's something that happened, not something you are. A rejected idea is simply that, an idea someone didn't see value in at that moment. A rejected application is just one person or one organization saying, "Not this time." A rejected message or invitation is simply another human responding from their own preferences, not delivering a universal truth about you. When you separate identity from outcome, rejection loses its ability to crush you. Rejection becomes powerful when you use it as a mirror. Every no reveals something. Sometimes it reveals a skill gap. Sometimes it reveals that you're aiming in the wrong direction. Sometimes it reveals that you need more preparation. And sometimes it reveals nothing, except that the situation simply wasn't aligned for you. And that's useful too. The confident person asks, "What is this teaching me?" instead of, "What is wrong with me?" That shift turns pain into insight into strategy, and strategy into growth. Rejection stops being a wound and becomes a sharpening tool. Think about how many rejections have quietly protected you. Situations, relationships, opportunities that were never meant to support your highest potential. You may not have known it in the moment, but looking back, you can often see that the rejection redirected you towards something better. Rejection closes doors that are not yours, so you don't waste time waiting at them. It is guidance disguised as disappointment. To transform rejection into power, you must detach your identity from the outcome. Instead of saying, "I failed," say, "This specific attempt didn't land." Instead of thinking, "They don't want me," think, "They don't align with me." And that's useful information. Instead of collapsing into shame, expand into curiosity. You are not the event. You are the person who gets to respond to the event. And that response determines your trajectory far more than the rejection itself. One of the most effective tools for changing your relationship with rejection is a rejection journal. It sounds simple, but it rewires your entire confidence system. Each time you face a rejection, log it, write down what happened, then write what it taught you, what it redirected, or what it clarified. Over time, you will begin to see patterns. You'll notice that most rejections pushed you into better paths. You'll notice the areas where you consistently grow. You'll notice the strength you've built from every setback you've survived. Instead of seeing rejection as a string of failures, you'll start to see it as a record of your resilience. Keeping a rejection journal helps you reclaim control over the narrative. It turns emotional experiences into documented evidence of your growth. It also normalizes rejection. When you see it on paper, you realize that it is not rare, not catastrophic, and not personal. It is part of the process. It becomes something expected rather than feared. And then when rejection stops scaring you, you become unstoppable. You try more. You take more risks. You open more doors. You step into bigger arenas. And the more you try, the more you grow. Rejection only destroys the people who let it define them. It strengthens the people who let it shape them. When you approach rejection with curiosity instead of shame, the fear around it evaporates. You begin to understand that rejection is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of where you are in your journey. And journeys require rerouting. Journeys require adjustments. Journeys require courage. Rejection provides all three. Turn rejection into power, not by pretending it doesn't hurt, but by refusing to let the hurt control you, by choosing interpretation over emotional collapse, by learning from the moment instead of shrinking because of it. Rejection is not the enemy. Your fear of it is. And once you stop fearing rejection, you step into a version of yourself that can take risks, chase opportunities, and pursue growth without being paralyzed by the possibility of hearing no. That version of you is dangerous because nothing can stop someone who isn't afraid of being rejected. Chapter 11. Detach from outcomes, anchor in effort. One of the deepest traps that kills confidence is becoming addicted to outcomes. Most people don't realize how tightly their mood, identity, and self-worth are tied to results. When something goes well, they feel powerful, proud, and capable. But when something goes wrong, they collapse internally. Their confidence crashes. Their value feels threatened. Their entire emotional state rises and falls based on wins and losses they cannot fully control. This creates a turbulent life, one where peace is fragile, confidence is conditional, and the slightest setback has the power to derail everything. Outcome addiction makes success feel like oxygen. You cling to achievements, praise, and good results because they give you a temporary sense of worth. But anything that gives you a temporary high also has the power to create a painful low. Living this way is exhausting. You constantly chase the next win because you fear what you'll feel without it. You begin performing instead of living. You begin obsessing instead of growing. You begin to fear failure so much that you stop taking the very risks that would help you grow. The antidote to outcome addiction is understanding what you actually control. You cannot control whether people like your work. You cannot control the economy, timing, competition, or the unpredictable variables life throws at you. You cannot control other people's preferences, reactions, or decisions. But there are four things you always control: your effort, your attitude, your preparation, and your integrity. These are the only things that belong fully to you. Confidence built on results is fragile, but confidence built on effort is unbreakable. When you anchor your identity in what you control, you step into a version of yourself that cannot be shaken by outcomes because your worth is rooted in behavior, not in external validation. The athlete mindset captures this perfectly. Great athletes don't walk into competition promising themselves they will win. They walk in promising themselves they will give everything they have. They train relentlessly, prepare completely, and step into the arena with full commitment. But once the game starts, they accept that certain things are beyond their control. Referees, weather, luck, the opponent's performance, timing, momentum. They focus on one thing: showing up at their highest level. If they win, they review what worked. If they lose, they review what needs improvement. Either way, the outcome becomes feedback, not identity. The scoreboard never tells them who they are. It tells them where they are in the process. This mindset frees you from the emotional chaos that comes from tying your self-worth to results. It allows you to pursue goals aggressively without collapsing when things don't go your way. It builds long-term confidence instead of temporary highs. It shifts the entire meaning of success from "did I win" to "did I honor my effort?" And when you live this way, you paradoxically perform better because you are no longer strangled by fear of failure. You show up fully because you're not trying to protect your worth. You're expressing it. One of the simplest ways to begin adopting this mindset is to shift your language. Instead of saying, "I have to win," say, "I will give my best and I will learn from whatever happens." Instead of saying, "I need this to work," say, "I'm committed to giving everything I can and the result will guide my next step." Instead of saying, "If I fail, I'm done," say, "If this doesn't work, I'll adjust and grow." These language shifts are not just motivational. They retrain your nervous system. They teach your brain that results are information, not verdicts. They break the emotional dependency on specific outcomes and replace it with a grounded sense of agency. The strongest people in the world are not the ones who win every time. They are the ones who show up fully regardless of the outcome. They fight, they learn, they adapt, and they continue. Their identity is built on grit, not on external applause. And because their confidence comes from within, it cannot be taken away by a bad day, a failed attempt, a harsh critic, or temporary setback. They are anchored in something deeper: effort, discipline, and intention. To practice detaching from outcomes, create a simple ritual before any big event: a meeting, a conversation, a project launch, an interview, a performance, anything that triggers pressure. On a small piece of paper, write two statements: what I control today and what I don't control today. Under the first, write your effort, your preparation, your attitude, your focus, your presence. Under the second, write the reactions of others, the final results, the unpredictable variables. This tiny exercise resets your mind instantly. It reminds you that your worth does not depend on the outcome. It depends on the integrity of how you show up. When you detach from results and anchor yourself in effort, you gain a level of freedom that most people never experience. You feel lighter because failure stops feeling fatal. You feel stronger because your confidence is no longer tied to external circumstances. You feel more courageous because you realize nothing that happens outside of you can define who you are. That is the beginning of unshakable confidence. Not the confidence that promises victory, but the confidence that promises resilience. When you learn to let go of outcomes and trust your effort, you stop fearing the future and start mastering it. Chapter 12. Set boundaries without apology. Most people misunderstand what boundaries really are. They imagine boundaries as walls, rigid barriers meant to shut people out or keep the world at a distance. But boundaries are not they are lines. Lines that define where your responsibility ends and someone else's begins. Lines that protect your energy, your time, your self-respect, and your emotional stability. Lines that communicate, "This is okay," and "This is not okay." Without those lines, people will inevitably take more than you're willing to give, not because they're malicious, but because human nature expands into whatever space is available. If you never set limits, life will gladly devour every minute, every ounce of energy, and every piece of your peace. A life without boundaries slowly turns into a life filled with resentment. You say yes when you want to say no. You stretch yourself thin to avoid disappointing someone. You accept behavior that drains you because you're afraid of conflict. You tolerate conversations, obligations, and dynamics that leave you emotionally empty. After a while, you don't even realize you're angry, not at others, but at yourself. Because deep down, you know when you've betrayed your own needs. You know when someone crossed a line you never enforced. You know when your silence allowed disrespect to continue. Every time you fail to set a boundary, you teach yourself that your comfort matters less than someone else's demands. And nothing erodes confidence faster than consistently abandoning yourself. Boundaries are not about controlling others. They are about controlling what you allow. They are not about changing people. They are about changing your responses. You cannot force someone to treat you differently, but you can decide what you tolerate and what you walk away from. You can decide how much access people get to you. You can decide where your emotional and mental space begins and ends. Boundaries are a form of self-respect in action. They are the practical expression of knowing your worth. And here's the truth. Boundaries don't require essays, explanations, or excuses. The most confident boundaries are simple, clean, and direct. No, I'm not available. That doesn't work for me. I won't continue this conversation. Please speak to me respectfully or I'm stepping away. I'm not taking on more tasks right now. These phrases are not rude. They are clear. The world needs more clarity, not more self-sacrifice disguised as kindness. The moment you stop padding your boundaries with apologies and long explanations, you will feel a noticeable shift in your energy. You stop negotiating your worth in every interaction. You stop feeling guilty for protecting yourself. You start treating your time and emotional space like something valuable, because it is. But even when your words are simple, enforcing boundaries often brings guilt. It feels uncomfortable because most people were never taught that protecting themselves is allowed. You may worry that someone will be upset, disappointed, or offended. And in truth, some people will be, not because you did anything wrong, but because your boundaries interfere with the convenience they once enjoyed. When you stop overgiving, people who benefited from your lack of boundaries may push back. They might accuse you of being selfish or difficult. They might guilt trip you, question your reasoning, or pressure you to return to your old patterns. But their discomfort is not your responsibility. Their reaction does not make your boundary wrong. In fact, pushback often confirms the boundary was necessary. Guilt is a natural part of the process, but it is not a signal that you should stop. Guilt simply means you're breaking an old pattern. It means you're shifting from people-pleasing to self-respect. And like any habit change, your emotions need time to adjust. Confidence grows when you learn to feel guilt and still hold the boundary anyway. Strength comes when you refuse to negotiate your self-respect in order to keep the peace. Your peace is your responsibility. It's not something others are tasked with preserving for you. To make boundaries practical and real, identify one place in your life this week where you will enforce a boundary. Just one. It could be declining an invitation you don't want. It could be telling someone you're unavailable. It could be stepping away from a draining conversation. It could be refusing extra work that doesn't belong to you. It could be limiting time with someone who leaves you exhausted. Whatever it is, Choose one specific area where your silence or compliance has been costing you, and draw the line. You don't need to announce it dramatically. You just need to act on it. Boundaries are not about being hard. They are about being honest. They are not about shutting people out. They are about letting people in on terms that protect your well-being. They are not about pushing others away. They are about pulling yourself back to center. Every boundary you set strengthens your confidence because it reinforces one essential truth. You are responsible for protecting your energy, and you are worthy of that protection. When you learn to set boundaries without apology, you stop living in reaction to everyone else's expectations. You stop stretching yourself thin to earn approval. You stop abandoning your own needs in the name of harmony. You begin to live with integrity to your values, to your limits, and to your self-respect. And that is where true confidence begins. Boundaries are not just lines. They are declarations of your identity. They are proof that you value yourself. They are the foundation of every strong, healthy, powerful life. Chapter 13, Stand Calm in Chaos. Chaos is the true test of confidence. Anyone can look composed when life is predictable, when conversations are easy, when circumstances unfold the way they're supposed to. But when things fall apart, when plans collapse, when pressure spikes, when emotions rise, when uncertainty hits, you see who people really are. Some crumble, some panic, some lose their center instantly. Chaos doesn't create weakness, it exposes it. And in the same way, chaos doesn't create confidence. It reveals the confidence you've built. The calmest person in the room is always the one people look to, because calmness in chaos is rare. It signals control, strength, and clarity. It shows that your internal state is not dictated by external noise. That kind of calm is not born in easy moments. It is built through deliberate practice. The first step to staying calm is physiological. Your body reacts to chaos before your mind has time to interpret what's happening. Stress tightens your muscles, shortens your breath, tenses your jaw, accelerates your heart, and prepares you for fight or flight. If you don't take control of your physiology, your emotions will take control of you. That's why the fastest way to reclaim calm is through breath. One deep inhale through the nose, a long controlled exhale through the mouth. This simple shift tells your nervous system, I am safe, I am in control. Relax your shoulders, unclench your jaw, loosen your chest. These small physical changes create internal space. That space allows your mind to think instead of react. Calm is not an accident, it is a physiological reset. Once the body settles, the mind can follow. The biggest mistake people make in chaos is rushing. They assume speed equals control, but speed under stress usually creates mistakes. Rushing triggers sloppy decisions, emotional reactions, and unnecessary conflict. True confidence understands the opposite. Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. When you slow your pace, you think clearly. When you think clearly, your actions become efficient. When your actions are efficient, results come faster than if you had panicked. Calm is not inactivity. It is precision. It is choosing clarity over urgency. It is understanding that the first reaction is rarely the smartest one. The people who stand out in chaotic situations are not the loudest or the most forceful. They are the steady ones, the ones who ground the environment instead of matching the chaos. When everyone is spiraling, The calm person becomes the anchor. People instinctively trust those who remain composed when things go wrong. Not because they necessarily know everything, but because calmness signals capability. When you stay calm, others feel safer. They listen more. They cooperate more. They look to you for guidance. Confidence becomes influence. Influence becomes leadership. And leadership becomes second nature, not because you demanded it, but because your presence earned it. When you are the calm one in the room, something else happens too. You gain a powerful advantage. Chaos scrambles the thinking of others. They get emotional, flustered, and reactive. But when you stay steady, you can see the situation clearly. You notice details others miss. You catch inconsistencies. You identify solutions. You remain logical while others scramble. Chaos becomes your clarity. Calmness becomes your strategy. And in a world where most people panic under pressure, this becomes one of your greatest strengths. To access this calm reliably, you need a personal chaos drill, a mental script you can run the moment something goes wrong. When you feel the surge of stress, when someone throws unexpected news at you, or when plans collapse, say to yourself, pause, breathe, slow down. I respond. I don't react. These words create distance between the event and your emotions. They remind you that nothing is gained by rushing into panic. They pull you back to logic when your instincts try to drag you into fear. After that, ask yourself one grounding question. What is the next best step? Just one, not 10, not the whole plan. Chaos feels overwhelming because people try to solve everything at once. Calm comes from handling one step at a time. Identify the next decision, the next action, the next priority. Everything else can follow. Over time, this script becomes automatic. Chaos hits, and instead of spiraling, you settle. You shift into control mode. You become the person others rely on, the one who doesn't break when things get loud. And every time you handle chaos with composure, your mind collects evidence that you are stronger than your emotions. This evidence becomes confidence, not the kind that comes from smooth days, but the kind that comes from surviving storms without losing yourself. Standing calm in chaos does not mean you feel nothing. It means you choose your response instead of surrendering to the moment. It means you own your state, even when the world tries to shake it. It means you become a source of stability in environments filled with instability. And that kind of presence, quiet, steady, unshakable, is one of the most powerful forms of confidence you can ever develop. Chapter 14. Train until skill becomes certainty. Confidence built only on mindset is unstable. You can repeat affirmations, hype yourself up, and recite empowering phrases. But if you don't have the skill to back your belief, the confidence will collapse the moment pressure hits. Real confidence comes from competence. You don't think your way into certainty. You practice your way into it. The person who has trained, researched, rehearsed, and repeated their craft 1,000 times walks into a situation with a different kind of energy. They don't hope they can do it. They know they can. That knowing is where true confidence begins. Most people rely on motivation instead of mastery. They want to feel confident before taking action, but that's backwards. Confidence does not come before the reps. The reps create the confidence. Doing something 100 times will give you more internal power than any motivational speech ever could. Repetition rewires your brain. It removes hesitation. It removes the unknown. It transforms fear into familiarity. When you practice something enough, the anxiety disappears because your body already knows what to do. Skill is the most honest and consistent source of confidence. You can't fake it. You either have the ability or you don't. And when you do, no amount of doubt can overpower it. The reason repetition is so powerful is that it builds unshakable proof. Every rep becomes a receipt of your capability. Every time you show up, even when you don't want to, your mind registers, I can handle this. With each repetition, you carve confidence into your identity. You don't need hype. You don't need external validation. You don't need reassurance. You have your own evidence. The work becomes your certainty. But repetition alone isn't enough. You need deliberate practice, the kind of intentional training that targets the specific areas that need improvement. Mindless repetition creates stagnation, but focused repetition creates mastery. Deliberate practice means studying your weaknesses and attacking them directly. It means getting feedback, making adjustments, and repeating the process until your movements, decisions, or skills become sharp. It means you don't shy away from the parts that make you uncomfortable. You go toward them because you understand that skill is built on the edges of your ability, not in the safe zones. Growth requires precision, not just effort. Deliberate practice also requires humility. You have to be willing to make mistakes. You have to be willing to look at your flaws without defensiveness. You have to be willing to hear feedback that might sting, but this humility pays off. Every weakness you identify becomes an opportunity. Every correction becomes a step forward. People who avoid feedback stay stuck. People who seek it rise. Skill grows fastest in those who care more about improvement than about appearing perfect. Tracking your progress is one of the most underestimated tools for building confidence. Improvement often happens slowly, and when you're in the middle of the process, you don't always notice how much you've grown. But when you track your progress, weekly, monthly, consistently, you create a documented record of your evolution. You see proof that you're better than you were last month. You see that your efforts haven't been wasted. You see your own transformation written in data, notes, or measurable milestones. That proof builds quiet certainty. It gives you a foundation of truth that your doubts cannot argue with. Your progress becomes your shield against insecurity. When you know you've improved, even by a small margin, you walk differently, you speak differently, you carry yourself differently. That internal shift is subtle but powerful. You stop needing reassurance from others because you have reassurance from your own history of effort. You stop fearing challenges because you know you've trained. You stop doubting yourself because your skills silence the doubt. Mastery creates a kind of confidence that cannot be shaken by opinions, criticism, or temporary setbacks. To put all of this into practice, you need a skill plan. Choose one or two skills that, if mastered, would transform your life, work, or confidence. Not 20, not 10, just one or two. Then commit to a set number of reps per week. It could be practicing speaking for 10 minutes a day, writing 3 pages every morning, rehearsing a presentation 5 times before delivering it, studying for an hour, or running a drill repeatedly until it becomes natural. The key is consistency. Skill does not come from intensity alone. It comes from showing up repeatedly over time. Your skill plan should be simple enough to follow, clear enough to measure, and consistent enough to create momentum. And once you begin, you must honor the commitment. The days you don't want to practice are the days that build you the most. The sessions that feel slow or unproductive are still carving discipline into your identity. Every rep is shaping you, even the ones that don't look impressive. When skill becomes certainty, you carry a different kind of confidence. It's not loud. It's not boastful. It's not fragile. It's steady. It's earned. It's built on real capability, not wishful thinking. You don't need to convince yourself. You just know. Mastery removes fear. Effort creates evidence. Repetition builds identity. And certainty grows from the work you put in when no one is watching. Train until your skill becomes certainty. That is confidence no one can take from you. Chapter 15. Live as if you're already enough. The highest level of confidence is not about needing nothing from the world. It's about knowing you are already enough without requiring the world to complete you. Many people misunderstand the idea of need nothing. They picture a cold, detached version of themselves who no longer cares, who no longer desires, who walks through life numb. But that's not confidence, that's emotional shutdown. True confidence is far healthier. It's the understanding that you can enjoy success, connection, validation, and progress without depending on them to feel whole. It's the ability to desire without desperation, to pursue without clinging, to love without losing yourself. Living as if you're already enough means this: everything you gain enhances your life, but nothing you lose destroys your sense of self. Most people live on the opposite end of the spectrum. They feel empty inside and look externally for something to fill that emptiness. They chase success because they think success will make them worthy. They cling to relationships because they think companionship will make them complete. They overwork because they think achievement will make them valuable. They obsess over appearance, popularity, and approval because they believe these things determine their identity. When your sense of worth is external, your confidence becomes fragile. One failure, one rejection, one criticism, sometimes even one bad day, is enough to shake you to your core. Living as if you're already enough breaks that cycle. It allows you to enjoy success while remaining free from it. You can celebrate your victories without being defined by them. You can pursue goals with passion without tying your identity to the outcome. You can receive praise with gratitude without becoming addicted to it. Success becomes something you create, not something you chase to feel alive. You remain grounded whether life hands you applause or silence. You feel steady whether you're winning or rebuilding. When you no longer need success to validate you, you perform better because fear of failure no longer suffocates you. You operate from fullness, not pressure. This principle is equally powerful in relationships. When you don't feel enough on your own, relationships become a lifeline instead of a choice. You cling to people who drain you. You tolerate disrespect out of fear of being alone. You bend your identity to fit what others want. You lose yourself trying to keep someone else. But when you live from wholeness rather than desperation, Relationships transform. You no longer cling. You choose. You no longer settle. You align. You no longer need someone to fill your emptiness. You share your life from a place of inner abundance. Healthy connection grows from overflow, not from lack. When you are already enough, love becomes expression, not escape. Living from internal fullness requires building an internal supply, your own personal source of respect, structure, and meaning. Instead of looking to the world to give you what you lack, you begin giving it to yourself. You create routines that support your growth. You build discipline that strengthens your trust in yourself. You cultivate values that guide your decisions. You treat yourself with respect instead of waiting for others to treat you well first. You develop interests, passions, and standards that give your life shape. When your internal world is strong, the external world becomes a bonus, not a requirement. One of the most powerful ways to cultivate this internal supply is through gratitude. Gratitude shifts your mind from scarcity to abundance. Scarcity says, I don't have enough yet. I'm not enough yet. I need more before I can be okay. Abundance says, I already have more than I realize. I already am enough. Anything more is a gift, not a requirement. Gratitude does not make you passive. It makes you grounded. It keeps your ego in check while keeping your heart full. It allows you to pursue more without believing you are nothing without it. It reminds you of everything you've survived, everything you've earned, and everything you've become. Gratitude is how you anchor yourself in enoughness. Living as if you're already enough is not about pretending you don't have needs. It's about recognizing that your core worth is independent of how the world responds to you. You can still want love, success, growth, and connection. Humans are built for desire, but you no longer believe those things are the source of your value. You are the source of your value. Everything else is enrichment. When you live this way, life feels lighter. Failure feels less threatening. Rejection feels less personal. Pressure feels less suffocating. You operate with a quiet confidence that doesn't need validation to breathe. This is what people feel when they meet someone truly confident. They sense an inner stability, a calm center, a grounded presence. A person who is not chasing, not proving, not begging. Someone who enjoys what comes but doesn't crumble when it goes. Someone who can stand alone and still feel whole. That is the kind of confidence that cannot be shaken because it does not depend on anything external to begin with. Live as if you're already enough, not because you're done growing, but because you're done believing you're incomplete. When you live from that truth, you stop chasing life, and life begins flowing toward you. You stop proving yourself, and your presence speaks for you. You stop clinging, and everything that belongs in your life has room to stay. This is the final stage of confidence: quiet, grounded, and free. Conclusion: confidence is not something you stumble into by accident. It's something you build, piece by piece, day by day, until it becomes part of who you are. And when you look back at the journey you've taken through this book, you'll notice that the transformation was never about becoming someone different. It was about stripping away everything that kept you from being solid, steady, and secure in yourself. You began with the reactive version of you, the one who explained too much, apologized for existing, chased approval, and let every opinion and situation pull them off center. You didn't lack confidence because you were weak. You lacked confidence because you handed your power to everything outside of you. But through every chapter, you've been reclaiming those pieces. You've learned to shorten your explanations, strengthen your boundaries, master your inner voice, and treat yourself with a level of respect that sets the tone for everyone around you. You've practiced silence, stillness, intention, and deliberate action. You've stepped into discomfort, into training, into self-control. You've worked to root your confidence in competence, in repetition, and in inner fullness. And slowly you've moved from reactive to intentional, from approval seeking to self-guided, from scattered to centered. The entire journey has been about becoming someone calm, boundaried, capable, and grounded. Someone who no longer breaks at the sound of criticism, who no longer folds when plans collapse, who no longer waits for permission to step into their own life. But there is an important nuance that must stay with you long after this book ends. Confidence is not about becoming unfeeling. It is not about numbing yourself, shutting down emotions, or pretending chaos doesn't affect you. True confidence is not the absence of fear, discomfort, or need. It's the ability to stay solid while you feel those things. You are human. You will get nervous. You will care. You will feel the sting of rejection, the worry of uncertainty, the weight of responsibility. Confidence isn't meant to erase that. It's meant to anchor you so deeply that these feelings move through you without knocking you over. You don't become powerful by denying your humanity. You become powerful by owning it, by learning to work with your emotions instead of being controlled by them. The goal was never to become untouchable emotionally. The goal was to become untouchable mentally, not unfeeling but unshakable, not cold but composed, not rigid but rooted. That is the kind of strength that lasts. And to maintain that strength, you don't need a complicated routine or 100 different rules. You only need 3 daily habits, small, simple, but powerful enough to keep your foundation solid. The first is the inner voice check. Every morning, before the world speaks to you, you speak to yourself. Reset your internal script. Replace doubt with direction, fear with capability, and criticism with clarity. Train your inner voice to stand with you, not against you. The second habit is one act of self-respect. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be keeping a promise you made to yourself, saying no to something that drains you, or choosing one behavior that matches the kind of person you want to be. Self-respect grows from consistent proof, not big gestures. The third habit is one small act of discomfort, just one, something that stretches you, challenges you, or demands a little courage. Confidence is a muscle. If you don't use it, it weakens. Small discomforts, repeated daily, create big resilience over time. These 3 habits are not chores. They are maintenance for your strength. They are how you stay grounded when the world shakes, how you stay confident during uncertainty, and how you continue growing without needing someone else to hand you permission. Confidence is a skill, and skills sharpen with repetition. Keep repeating these 3, and your confidence will not just grow, it will compound. Now, as you reach the final moments of this book, here's the last thing you need to hear. You don't need to master every chapter today. You don't need to transform overnight. Confidence does not arrive in a lightning bolt. It arrives in the next choice you make. So pick one chapter, just one, apply it today, not tomorrow, not someday, today, because confidence isn't built in theory. It's built in repetition. It's built in action. It's built in the quiet moments where you choose strength instead of habit. The person you want to become is not far away. They're one decision, one practice, one repetition closer than you think. Go take that step. The untouchable version of you is already waiting,